All right, everybody. So I have on here today a special guest, one of my past clients, Jessica. I am so excited to have her on today because her story is one of many that inspire me to this day in how fast progress can be made when you truly dedicate yourself to this process of healing your relationship with food, your body, and exercise. So I just wanted, to introduce Jessica and have you briefly explain, who you are, what brought you to work with me, and what you were struggling with before starting with coaching. We can go from there.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so I'm Jessica. I um I contacted Emily in the beginning of December because I think if I'm being honest, like most women, there are all kinds of like pressures that you have all of your life. And I think I came up with a lot of them. I grew up with a lot of them, but I discovered, I think right around, when I had my son, who is now 18, that I really, really started to like fixate on the way that I looked, and the food that I was eating. Um, when my son was little, I felt pressure to lose the baby weight really quickly. I was getting all kinds of comments about how disciplined I was and how great I looked. And underneath all of that, I was really struggling. I struggled with, um, like nursing my baby and like keeping my baby healthy and juggling all of the things and like some sort of postpartum depression, I know. Um, but I think like at that point, I was getting so much um, like praise for how quickly I lost baby weight that became something that I clung to. And that stuck with me for years. So it started with me just trying to be healthy. I was just trying to be healthy and come back after the baby. And I did that, I think, until maybe Jake was 7, and then what was healthy turned into something that I knew really wasn't healthy. And so it was like eating disorders and over exercising and like all different kinds of variations, if you will, of that. Um, and then I think I keep these measurements in my head because it was about when my son was 11. My husband and I moved, and I knew that I needed to focus more on my health. I knew that I was not present in my life. I knew I was feeling distracted. So I was like, I'm going to do the quote unquote things that I need to do to not have an eating disorder. I'm going to eat the sweets. I attempted an intuitive eating program. I went to counseling. I've seen some counselors through it. Um, and so I started allowing myself sweets, but I allowed myself a cookie with a million rules like attached to it. And I didn't hate my body, but I didn't trust my body either. So I spent probably about 7 years in this space of what is in your program now, I know is like quasi recovery, where I looked recovered. I made sure I looked recovered and healthy and trusting of my body and like she can eat a cookie from the outside, but there was something missing because I wasn't feeling recovered. Everything else that like was outward facing in my life looked recovered and healthy and good now, but I was feeling on the inside like there has to be more to this. There's got to be something that I'm just not getting. And so I contacted Emily. I stumbled across your podcast actually, um, and just contacted you for some help and hoping that I could finally just connect those like really important last dots for me.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
Jessica, and how long, I know this, I know the answer to this, but how long were you struggling with this for?
so I would say I knew I was struggling with it for easily 18 years of my life. Um, but I, if I think back to when I was younger, there were always like little comments about my weight when I gained weight, when I was like 12 and 13, and I was a growing girl. I would gain a little bit of weight over the summer or lost it, or I wasn't as thin as my sister, or so I had all of those little comments, but I thought that was quote unquote normal, like, right? That's normal. Um, and then, I constantly compared myself to my friends when I was younger and then when I was in college. But I was really, really aware, probably right around 28
Mhm.
years old, and I'm 47 now.
Mhm. And do you think the quasi recovery happens like when you were aware of the issue, or do you feel like that was a bit shorter, a bit longer?
The quasi recovery came probably 12 years after I became aware that I had a pretty bad disorder. I was able to, well, I think I hid it for 12 years. But in hindsight, I'm lucky I have an incredibly supportive husband who he saw it. So I didn't do a very good job like hiding it from him, but he was also very sensitive to, I got defensive, when he would make a comment or bring something up to me, I would get really defensive. So I was before I even became quasi recovered, I was very unrecovered for 12 years,
Mhm.
a long
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I understand that. And I do find that so many people find themselves really stuck in that place of quasi recovery because it's like you do some of the work and you feel like you're making improvements in some areas, but then the thoughts are still there. The thoughts,
Absolutely.
the actions, and it's like you can only like hide it for so long and almost kind of like kid yourself in that situation of like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm doing fine. Like I'm fine. I've always heard people say like I'm fine. And it's like, are you? Are you
Right.
fine? Like, um, and I wanted to even allude to what you told to me before we hopped on this podcast about how food became like a friend to you. Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yes. Well, actually, I think, and it's interesting. I'll touch on one thing that you said about like quasi recovery is that I looked good. Like on the outside, I looked like I had a healthy relationship with food because I was checking those boxes, and I looked like I had a healthy relationship with exercise because I was checking those boxes. But I actually felt like quasi recovery was almost harder because in my mind, I then was extra aware that my patterns weren't healthy. And while I was doing all the check the box things, it was almost like torturing me that I was like just not getting it. And things weren't clicking.
Mhm.
But before that, I will say for the 12 years where I really like, I armored up and clung to my eating disorder because earlier on in my eating disorder, when people were praising me for being so thin, for being so disciplined around the gym, for bouncing back after having a baby so quickly, I wish everyone did that, or oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. I don't know how you did that. Um, and then, so that felt like it gave me a sense of control over my life when I really had no control. Like I was struggling after having a baby. Um, I was like not loving my job, but I could control what I ate and how I exercised. And then I also felt in my mind that I could control the way other people thought about me because everyone complimented me all the time on my fitness and my discipline around food and my discipline around exercising yoga. And so that became my identity. And then when someone would, like, even in a very loving place and way, like my husband might mention, can you not just go out to eat with us? I would snap at him in defense of my eating disorder because my eating disorder was my friend. I mean, it was my friend that I kept hidden from everyone in the world, but it was the one thing that gave me a sense of control, the one thing that made me feel like I could count on it no matter what. Like, no matter what, my eating disorder was going to like be there to give me a sense of relief when everything else felt so crazy. So I made my eating disorder my friend and I became incredibly defensive of it for a long time. I don't envy like my husband for trying to like slowly chip away at that. Um,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize like an eating disorder is never it's not a choice. And I think a lot of people think it's like you choose to have an eating disorder and it's an addiction. It's something that starts small, like whether, there's a triggering event, a triggering comment for you, it was, like comments over and over and over again that were actually making the eating disorder worse and kind of fueling the fire to where you become addicted to it. It makes you feel like that's your only choice.
Right. And it's a powerful coping mechanism. It's a
Mhm,
very powerful coping mechanism because we will get, I'm sure later in this conversation, to my very first aha moment when we started working together about my eating disorder, which was interesting and why I clung to it so much and what I really thought it was for the entirety of it being like really present in my life. So,
mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think we can skip around. I think I want to ask you, what do you feel like was that biggest aha moment, in this journey with me? And we can go from there.
Yeah. So I had a million aha moments in just I feel like I had the first one within the first 2 weeks. Um and I will honestly say I went into this without I just made a promise to myself that I was not going to be afraid and that I was going to do whatever I'm like whatever she asks me to do, I'm going to do it. I don't care if I have to eat 100 times a day, if that's what I have to do. And I was prepared to make all these changes to my food. Um, the first aha moment I had was that it's not about the food, that
Mhm,
none of what I was struggling with had anything to do with food. For me, it was about control and it was about my identity. And I was trapped. I felt trapped by an identity that really wasn't even me, which was the fit girl, you know, um, but none of it was about the food.
mhm.
It had nothing to do with the cookie.
Yeah.
So, and it's had everything to do with my need and my desire to feel safe and feel like I had control
Mhm. Of
in
course.
one way, shape, or form over my life.
I remember when you told me that aha moment when I was reading your check-ins and I'm like, oh my gosh, she knows, she gets it. Like she gets it and she's connecting the dots because it truly is so much more than just the food, which is why I have, in the very beginning, from the get-go, do so much mindset work to unpack that. Because if we focus on the food only with, this whole journey, a lot of people think, a dietitian, they're only going to focus on food, they're going to give you a meal plan, and that's going to be it. And it's like,
I was ready for that too. I was gonna do it.
No, that's not the way I roll. That's not the way I roll. I don't think that, again, even in traditional treatment centers and things like that, obviously the focus is going to be on just the food and your weight. And
Yes.
I'm not about that because from experience myself, I know that that's not the key to full recovery. Full recovery requires a deeper level of dedication, a deeper level of self-awareness, and a deeper level of that mindset work to make those shifts. Because, like you said, if we only focus on the food and the body, you stay in quasi recovery. It's so unfortunate because, again, we live in diet culture. Diet culture is all around us, and unfortunately, very much so in the conventional space, too.
Yeah. Well, and it's also another, so I will say there are tools in this program that I will continue to refer to forever. And some of it is very simple. It's like burned in my brain. There's an image of like your realm of control, essentially. Like these are the things you can control, and these are the things that you cannot. There are journal prompts that help me, and I continue to go to. Um, Around like separating yourself from your eating disorder. And, even going into this program, I was thinking, whatever I have to change about my eating and about my diet, I'm going to do it because that'll fix it. Nothing that I could have changed about my eating and about my diet was going to fix what was hurting me and holding me back. What fixed what was hurting me and holding me back and what started to address it was everything that was on the inside of me, not my food, not my diet, not the size of my pants. Um, None of that was going to fix what I needed help with. And what I needed help with was my values and returning to my values and being so sure of them that anything that challenged them was not worthy of like taking up my time and my energy. And just reframing my identity around my values. And that meant taking my identity and my values and removing them from what was like what was tangible and superficial, which is like my body and how I ate and what I looked like to other people, to what mattered to me, what moved me, what I'm willing to fight for in my life, and how I feel and what I believe about what's happening around me, versus something that was like external to me that I just needed to. If I could just white knuckle and change that behavior, it's going to fix everything. And it doesn't.
Mhm. And I want to ask you, because you had struggled with this for so many years, what do you think keeps, women and men back from change and getting help? Because I'm pretty sure there probably was a point in your life where you thought about, and it sounds like you did, reach out for help through, different, programs and even seeing a therapist. But what do you think really keeps people back?
I fear, fear, definitely. Fear of letting go of control, because I do think so much of it is about like just reaching for something to be able to control. Um, so yeah, absolutely the fear. I think superficially, there's like a little bit of fear of gaining weight, and there's a little bit of that stuff that I definitely have had many times. And I mean, there were many times over my life where 2 pounds turned me around and kept me like running back to the gym and my like fitness pal and my super strict calorie counting. And like, so it, for a lot of time for me, it was the fear of gaining weight, the fear of a little bit of like losing my identity, the fear of what eating, that I was just going to eat all the bad food forever. So there was fear, but then I think really beyond that and bigger than that, there is really just that I didn't trust myself. Like I didn't trust myself to be able to um, catch me when I let all of it go. Like, um, and then the other part is like fear of feeling like a failure, because I had been told for so long that what I was doing was a success. Like I was successfully lean and thin, and I was successfully a runner, and I was a fit girl, and I did yoga, and um, but really it's like, yeah, I think that those were all the things that kept me from moving forward, until I realized in my life that it was not sustainable. And I wanted more to be present in my life than I was afraid of, like just letting go of control.
Mhm.
And like, God forbid, gaining some pounds,
Mhm.
you know.
I think you hit it right on the dot. I think it's this fear, having the fears outweigh the potential gain, the
Yeah.
potential benefit of recovery. And I think sometimes we let fear get in the way and kind of be that like you know,
Yes.
blockage in front of the reality of all the good that can come from getting yourself unstuck. I mean, I was pretty much in the same situation as you for so long in that quasi recovery denial stage of
Yeah.
like, let's see how long I can continue to be in this place where like I'm still tracking food, I still have all these food rules.
Yeah.
Let's see how long I can continue to have the best life ever. But then you realize it's like how much of it's taking from your life.
Yes.
Um,
It's distracting and it's consuming. That was another aha moment. Like I was shocked with like, what do I do with all this time? Now that I'm not worried about the next time I'm going to eat, what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to eat. Oh my gosh, I have to now completely change my schedule, and I have anxiety because someone planned something over my eating time. Um, so it frees up a lot of the space in your brain. But the hardest, it's hard because for as many times as I tried, I never believed that all those good things were truly going to come on the other side of it. I would get almost there. And my quasi recovery was exactly like you said. It's like you get right to that tipping point where you're really trying to play in both spaces. Like you want to be free, but you're afraid to like really just let go of those few little things. And then you justify. It's like, okay, well, I'm just, I'm just counting my calories, but I don't really care what they are, but I'm counting them.
Hmm.
Then yes, you care
Hmm.
what they are. So
Yeah. It's like that. It's like you're holding on. It's like that grip, that tight grip
yes,
that when you let go of that,
you
it's
have to trust.
difficult. Hmm.
Yeah, you have to trust because for a moment it feels like a free fall. And then you're just like, wow, whoa, my body knows what to do with that. Like
Hmm.
my body knows how to respond to that. And it's almost like it felt almost like, yeah, a free fall. You're jumping out of a plane and you really have to finally let go of everything and you do. And then you're scared. And then suddenly your parachute opens and you're like, oh, wow, okay, I did that and I'm safe.
Hmm.
Um, because my it's got me.
Hmm. And do you think during our time together, it was helpful for you to rebuild trust with your body? Because it sounds like in the very beginning, you struggled with that trust and trusting that it was going to be okay. And I know there were so many fears around rebuilding
So
trust.
much. So much. One of the first things that we changed was a food thing. And it was really just eat a breakfast. Don't eat a bar, eat a breakfast.
Hmm.
And that was really important because I didn't even know the purpose of that necessarily. You were like, it's going to give you more energy. I mean, you explained everything I needed to know about why it was important for me to be eating a breakfast. But I was like, okay, put a checkbox next to it, like eat breakfast. This is the thing I'm going to do. What I didn't realize was how much eating breakfast would change my day, change my body. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I gave my body food, and my body in return gave me energy all day long. I had better workouts than I had had just like weeks before. I was like, what am I doing? Not like trying to feel like I needed to fall asleep at 4 and like there was no way I would go to the gym in the evening because when my husband got home and I should be spending time with my husband and son, which is one of my values. In the past, I would sacrifice that time because I was like, this is my eating time. First of all, 6 o'clock, it was time to eat. It was not time to go to the gym with my boys. Um, and now it's like I had so much energy. I'm like, wow, yeah, I could totally go to the gym with the boys and we just like get food when we get home and it wasn't a big deal. So it was a little change, but and I didn't even realize it was teaching me that if I gave my body what it needed, that I could trust it. And so that snuck up on me. I was just like, wow, I don't even know when that happened.
Hmm.
But like my body is taking that food and doing like awesome things with it.
Hmm. What
So
are I remember you talked about how food was on your mind a lot. What are some other benefits do you think has happened as a result of this journey? I guess describe what your relationship with food looks like now.
yeah. So I love food when I'm eating it. Um I love food when I'm cooking it. I'm excited to try, like, we try new restaurants. We like that kind of stuff is fun. Uh, but food is almost not it, not almost. Food is not even a thing unless I choose for it to be a thing. It's like, hey, let's try something new tonight for dinner. That's when I think about food. What do you guys want? Okay, we'll have that. Um, but other than that, I almost like I don't think about it. It's not on my mind until I'm hungry. And that's crazy to me because I used to think about food all the time, all the time.
Mm.
And I was counting down. I'm like, oh my gosh, my body, like I had totally abandoned any recognizing my hunger because it wasn't 1:30. And so hunger was not allowed. And now it's just like when I'm hungry, I eat. And I learned conversely, like, not to just to honor my body in general, because in the beginning I was still like, well, I should probably try to eat this. I tried to just like implement this like nutrition thing way early, and I was like, no, 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 that has to go. Like, I'm not ready for that. And my body told me I wasn't ready for that. I was like, I need to eat all this protein. I need to, and it just wasn't ready for that. But it's
Mhm.
It's unbelievable. I actually was like, I don't know what to do with all of this time. And that was one of the things I did worry about. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope um my mind doesn't take me back into a space where I'm like, oh, let me like, you know, I could count calories just for a little bit, or I could do this for where I would miss that identity. And I would miss what I was filling my time with before. And so I've just like made a point because it's unbelievable the amount of time that's been freed up in my mind to be present. It's really, really cool. I'm reading a lot and I'm prioritizing time with my family. I'm prioritizing adventures. Um, it's really cool. I feel like it's like just it's such a different feeling than I've ever been used to.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. And I so relate because I know how liberating that feels when you kind of like go over the rainbow, like kind of like get over like the messy middle of going from restricting to this process of intuitive eating to getting to the other side of it and seeing the freedom
Yes.
and reflecting on your journey and thinking about, my gosh, like for so many years, I could have been experiencing this.
Yeah. I was sad about that for a while, actually. I think, and I talked to you about that somewhere right around in the middle of going through this program. I actually had to really give myself grace to be sad about all of the time that I wasted. And I mean, even just the time in my mind thinking about food and scheduling food and planning food, right down to all of the social events that I skipped and that I missed. And, I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, time really matters. And so I had to really, really be honest with myself. And I think that's a whole other part of this is to be able to be really honest with yourself about where you are and what you're thinking and um not avoid being sad, not avoid thinking through times and thinking through situations that you might have been in that you're just super sad that you spent all that time um in those places. So I for sure went through a little bit of just being really sad about all the time that I lost.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah. It's
but then
definitely,
knowing
oh,
that
go
it's
ahead.
not then just knowing that it's not that way now and that I can choose tomorrow to not waste any time.
Mhm. And I love that perspective shift because I mean, I always tell women, I don't care how old you are, how long you have been struggling with food for, like you can heal and you can change the trajectory of the rest of your life. It's just going to require some discomfort. And change is never easy for anybody. But I always encourage even like my younger ladies who are in their teens and their 20s, to do it now so that you aren't looking back at life realizing how much time and energy was spent on things that don't matter and realizing I have so much regrets because of my relationship with food. And it's something you have to live with. I mean, I personally, like, I struggled with this myself for like 10 years growing up, and it's time that I'll never get back.
Yeah,
But when you do heal and you have the rest of your life to look forward to.
yeah. Well, and the other piece about that is when I was like just super sad about all of the time that I feel like I wasted and I won't get back, is that it motivates me to never go back into that space because it's a time suck and it's a life suck. Um, And yeah, you just like, none of us you never know what's coming for us and what's next. But I do know that I don't ever want to go back um to having my life consumed with stuff that just really doesn't matter.
Mhm. Do you think it was, I mean, worth coming to, I guess, joining Nourished? Do you think it was worth getting help? Do you feel like it helped you get to the other side? Do you feel like it was
This-
something that, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
47 and this program without a doubt, like because I've been through an intuitive eating program before. And I I faked it through the program the best that I possibly could because I was checking boxes and it totally it didn't work for me. So I would say like this program, the way you have it laid out and the way I moved through it, I knew what I was learning. I knew the work that I was doing, but there was so much that was happening if you do the work right, if you move through the and right. I mean, if you do them in the order that you tell me to, you move through them. I didn't realize how much I was actually learning until I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh. So worth it is an understatement. I think it was key because there were so many things that I figured out just from going back through the modules and even some of them going back through it a second time that I wasn't going to, I don't know that I ever would have been able to figure that out on my own. Or at the very least, the last 7 years of quasi recovery, I didn't. And believe me, I was reading all the self-help books. I was doing all of the things that I could possibly do because I knew that well, I knew that I was in an off space. Now I know, it's like a quasi space. Like I was partway there. Um, but I just didn't know the work. And there were certain things, dots that I needed connected. Um, and I needed to be guided through pieces of it because I was not getting there on my own.
Mhm.
And I just think it's incredibly important. I mean, help and support is like, it's worth its absolute weight in gold.
Mhm. I mean, I
So
appreciate you saying that. And, the one thing I always try to encourage people is like, I'm a dietitian and I got into this work because I wanted to change lives. I didn't get into this work for money. I didn't get into this work for, just giving me people meal plans and just sending on your way. Like, I'm not about standardized programs, which I think is such a big thing in the health space now. Of like, just like, sign up to this program and like read, listen to these things. And it's like without accountability, without support to have somebody guide you through the process, like that I feel like is a big thing that's missing in the coaching space, that I think needs to be changed because
it's, yeah, it's a huge thing that's missing. And that was another thing too, the last like, and I would say this to anyone listening, I spent a lot of time chasing answers on social media and like on Instagram and on Facebook. I would find these groups and um, I would say just like be cautious because it's a messy space. And I know I've heard you say that now too, but I think the other piece of our early work was that it wasn't just giving me actionable things to do. It wasn't just a list of things to do, like here are 5 things that you need to do if you want to heal your relationship with food. These are things that you like, think about it this way, think about this. Um, versus like, this is like me dictating to you what you need to do to fix yourself. Um, it was like, it's really a guide. It really and truly is. It's not like, it's like, it's, it's my path, right? It's just you saying, you guiding me and helping me through it. Um, and yeah, I don't know. We chatted a couple of times, I know, in check-ins because the social media space is so crazy around eating disorders and not eat like in the healing space and the intuitive eating space. And I'm a nutritionist space. And so it was a leap for me to reach out. But and I think I shared with you before I found you on the podcast. Looked at your Facebook for a little while, and then probably it was 9 months or a year almost of me following you on social media before I reached out. And the approach that you take is it was exactly what I needed. It was just like compassionate. It wasn't um, there's a part of me that was afraid of doing drastic things and there was nothing drastic about this program. Like I said, I was partway through it before I ever even realized that things had changed so much. I'm like, I don't know when that changed. I haven't thought about food, and I don't even know when that changed because I was so busy working on the things that weren't food. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, it was never about the food."
Mhm. Oh
So,
my gosh, a little tear coming to my but no, no, I love to hear that because I'm so proud of like the progress that you made in these 16 weeks. I mean, it hasn't even been 16 weeks yet, but
yeah,
like you have made so much just mental progress and it makes me so happy. And I know that so many women listening to this are going to get inspired because, we always kind of coin the term of, having an obsessive relationship with food to be kind of like orthorexia. But I do say that no matter what, whether you call it an eating disorder or disordered eating, or I'm a chronic dieter, all struggles with food are valid. All struggles with food need attention because it is your life. It is your life that you have to live. And nobody should spend it, and regardless if you think that you have to lose weight, nobody should be spending it obsessing and stressing about food to where it's taking more from your life than it's adding to it.
yes. And I think when all of your attention, and I spent so much time here, when all of your attention is on food and exercise, you're not really addressing what is is hurting you. And you're not really able to even process. And that's why it's a distraction. It's a coping mechanism and a distraction. And it's a, you know, you can get so stuck there. And I spent so much time so stuck there. And I mean, I've been through places where I can't even put into words how desperate I felt to not be trapped in the cycle that I was in. But I could not for the life of me see a way out of it. And, you know, when I started really, really struggling, it was a wide road that I was walking. And all of the years into it, it just became more and more narrow and more terrifying to deviate or divert at all from my very perfect and precise eating patterns and eating habits because if I did, I was going to fail and I was prone to fail because I didn't have willpower or I didn't have discipline or I wasn't doing something right. So it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Mhm.
And it's like to your point earlier, it's not like it's a choice, or it's not like it's something that you can just not do, or not like, if you, when you fix this, my eating disorder crept up on me like you wouldn't. I didn't go out one day and say like, I'm just gonna have an eating disorder now. I think I'll have one of those, please. Um, it morphed and it changed and it snuck up on me. And sometimes it would be a little more quiet and other times it was raging. And it was about me and my securities and coping and it's really painful and it's really sad. It's hard. I want everyone to not have that and not have to be stuck in that place. Because it truly is awesome when you can go a week and then realize, like looking back, that you didn't stress one bit about food. And then suddenly it's 2 weeks, and then it's 3 weeks, and then it's like, I don't even know what to put into my reflection for Emily because there's nothing I can say about food. I'm really indifferent to it right now. I'm too focused on these other things. I'm so much more present at work, and that is all possible. Um, but it's hard. It's not like it's not easy. It's not.
Mhm. Mhm. It's one of the I'll probably like end this podcast by saying I always say that you can't heal a lifetime of disordered eating in like a 30-day quick fix. You can
No
make a
way.
lot of progress, but if we truly want to see the most changes within your mindset, and again, it's not only about the mindset, it's about behaviors, like how much time it takes to change those behaviors in conjunction to the mindset. And it does take some time. And it's not easy work, but
No.
nothing in life that is easy or nothing in life that's worth it is going to be easy.
That's 100% true. And it's not linear either. So
Mhm.
I will say for anyone who's even considering, or anyone that resonates with any of this, like I'm just saying, it's like This program has changed my life, absolutely, completely, and I've been trying to do everything I can to change my life for a lot of years. Um, and it is worth it. And it isn't linear. It's not a linear 16 weeks. Like, I would have a couple of weeks where I would feel great, and then I was like, "Oh, wow, there's another, like, monster to slay." Um, but as we neared the end of the 16 weeks, I almost don't even recognize the way that I think about things, and I would want that for everyone that has ever struggled, with their relationship with food, exercise, or their body, for sure.
Mhm. Well, Jessica, I really appreciate you being on here today. And I know this is going to speak to so many women because, you're a very down to earth person. I love the way that you communicate and have been so honest and transparent about, your struggles and like how that was affecting your life to where you are now. And I just know it's going to be a big inspiration.